The cashier's voice cut through the silence. "I'm sorry, sir. Your card has been declined." The entire cafe froze. Whispers spread. A billionaire stood humiliated, powerless. Then from the corner, a poor little girl did something no one expected. The unthinkable. The man in the tailored suit shifted uncomfortably. His watch gleamed, his shoes shone, but in that moment, his wealth meant nothing. The cashier's eyes darted nervously, repeating the words louder this time. "Declined." Gasps rippled through the cafe. A billionaire stranded in front of strangers, unable to pay for the simplest of meals. For the first time in years, Richard Morgan felt the sting of being judged. Customers whispered, eyes narrowing, their glances heavy with silent mockery. In the far corner, a little girl with tangled hair and a worn sweater watched the scene unfold. She was no older than 10, clutching a paper cup half filled with coins she had collected from strangers' pity. To the world, she was invisible, but in that instant, her eyes glowed with something others had long forgotten. Compassion. Richard Morgan had not always been a man of power. His life began in the dirt. He grew up in a neighborhood where hunger was louder than laughter. He remembered the smell of old bread, the shame of hand-me-downs, the nights spent shivering under thin blankets. His mother, a nurse, worked double shifts, her hands cracked and weary. She whispered to him every night, "Son, dignity is not about what you own. It's about how you rise when you fall." When Richard was drafted into the army as a young man, he carried her words like armor. He learned to survive deserts filled with fire, to carry brothers on his back while bullets cut the air, to hold dying friends and whisper prayers through blood and dust. Sacrifice became his second language. When he returned home, haunted by ghosts of war, he vowed never again to feel powerless. Through sheer grit, he clawed his way into business. He built an empire of steel and glass, towering offices that kissed the sky. Yet in his pursuit of power, he buried his past, silenced his memories, and hid his scars behind luxury. Now, fate brought him back to humility. The cafe was thick with judgment. Some customers smirked. Others rolled their eyes. No one stepped forward. The billionaire's silence deepened, but inside his heart raced with the old familiar sting of being small, unseen, unwanted. Then it happened. The little girl rose from her seat, her tiny shoes scraping against the floor. She walked slowly, her steps unsteady but determined. The room watched in disbelief as she reached into a cup of coins and poured them onto the counter. "Here," she whispered, her voice barely audible but steady. "This should cover it." The coins clinked against the wood, scattered but shining. Pennies, nickels, dimes, worthless to most, priceless in that moment. The cafe fell silent. Every bystander who had mocked, every customer who had sneered, now stared at the child with shame pressing into their chests. Richard's eyes burned. For years he had seen people bow to his money, flatter his wealth, chase his favor. But here was a girl who had nothing, giving everything, not for reward, not for recognition, but because her heart demanded it. He bent down slowly, meeting her gaze. She smelled faintly of dust and street air, but her eyes, bright, fierce, unshaken, were pure light. "Why would you help me?" he asked softly. She shrugged, her little shoulders rising. "Because you looked like you needed it." The words pierced deeper than any insult. He, a man of towers and billions, was being saved by a child with coins. The manager of the cafe rushed forward, embarrassed now, fumbling apologies. "Sir, we didn't mean—" But Richard lifted his hand, silencing him. His focus was only on the girl. Sometimes the richest soul is the one who owns nothing, he thought, the words searing into his mind. Whispers shifted. Respect replaced mockery. Strangers who had stood silent now felt the weight of their inaction. A woman in the back dabbed her eyes with a napkin. The cashier swallowed hard, shame written across her face. Richard stood tall, but his pride had melted into humility. He reached into his coat, pulled out another card, one linked not to wealth but to truth. It worked instantly. The bill was paid, yet the true debt lay elsewhere. He turned back to the girl, still clutching her empty cup. With reverence, he knelt before her, the billionaire bowing to the child. "Your kindness is worth more than all my fortune," he said quietly. She smiled, a gap between her teeth. Innocence shining. To her it was nothing unusual. She gave because giving was all she knew. The cafe erupted in applause, not loud but sincere. People stood, some lowering their heads in silent apology, others clapping in respect for the little girl who had taught them all. Richard Morgan left that cafe not as a man disgraced, but as a man reborn. He later found the girl's family, living in a shelter, surviving day to day. He did not shower them with charity for pride's sake. Instead, he gave them dignity, a home, an education, opportunities. He became their silent guardian, not because he pitied them, but because they had reminded him of something he had forgotten: what true wealth really means. In boardrooms weeks later, he was asked about the moment his card was declined. His answer became legend. The day I was saved by a child with nothing was the day I remembered I had everything to give. And so the story spread, not of a billionaire's embarrassment, but of a little girl's courage. Her act was unthinkable, not because it was grand, but because it was pure, unmeasured, and unconditional. The cafe where it happened became a quiet landmark, a reminder that dignity is not purchased, that kindness is not owned, and that sometimes the smallest hands carry the greatest power. Iconic quotes from the story. Sometimes the richest soul is the one who owns nothing. Your kindness is worth more than all my fortune. The day I was saved by a child with nothing was the day I remembered I had everything to give. This story reminds us, true wealth is not in cards or coins, but in the courage to give when you have little. Silent dignity, quiet kindness, and unseen compassion can change lives more than power or pride. Where are you watching from? Do you believe the smallest acts of love can change the world? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story moved you, subscribe for more cinematic stories that honor silent heroes and hidden battles.